Hi guys, Dwaine here, hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video on my channel. So, today, what we're going to be covering is rental properties. You've been saving up for quite a while and it's time for you to start investing that money so that that money can make more money and more money and more money. Okay, so that you one day can retire rich or at least financially free. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is the bare minimum basic terms that you need to understand when you want to start investing into property. Super important that you understand these terms because they are used widely, and if someone says it, you don't want to be in a meeting or in a property viewing where someone tells you about these terms and you don't really know about it, or the estate agent comes to you and talks to you about it. It's really important to understand these points, and I hope you find this video very interesting today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to cover is demand. Demand, how many people are looking to rent in your specific area that you're planning to buy your flat, your property, your building, your shopping center, whatever it is. Make sure that there is enough demand, okay? And the flip side of demand is supply. How many properties are available in that specific area? The odds are that if there's a lot of properties available, that the demand is low. Okay, that means the supply is outweighing the demand because there's more properties than there is people that want those properties. But if the people that want the properties are more, the supply will become very small. Okay, and that is what you want. So do your market research, go onto those property websites and find out where and in which area is the highest demand for a property, okay? And then what you do is you specifically go into those areas and you find the property to invest in. Okay, secondly is rental. Rental is a simple term, but that is the amount of money that you'll be receiving every month. Super important again, do your own market research. Okay, go onto those property apps, find out what is the going rate for certain properties, look at the square meters, look at the bedrooms, look at the bathrooms, look if there's a garage, okay? And that is the type of property that you might want to buy for your investment property. Perfect, okay? But now you need to find out what is the rental that they charge in the market for that. Okay, so is yours a bit more modern, more updated? Then you can charge a bit more. Is yours a bit more run down and a bit older? Then you maybe have to charge a bit less. Or is it just the exact same as the others? Then maybe see if you can do something special. Maybe you can include a fiber or internet within your rental agreement that makes sure that your property stands out from the rest. Or maybe you do some nice landscaping, or you maybe do the kitchen, renovate the kitchen. Those are all ways for you to put your property in a different bracket in the market. But rental, how much money will you be receiving per month, and make sure it's market related. And if it's not market related, there needs to be a reason for it. Next, will you be buying commercial or residential? This is a very important question because where residential and commercial is completely different. Residential property means where people live. Theoretically, it's a resident. And then commercial property, you're looking at either retail space or office space. Residential, you can get up to from 20 to 30 years bonds, okay? When it comes to commercial, it's from 5 to 15 years, depending on the size of the property. And just there's a lot more detail that goes into applying for a bond when it comes to a commercial property. Interest rate, obviously. Now, you'll later on in the series, when I talk about interest rates again and tax deductibility and stuff like that, you'll see that interest rates makes a small difference, but it is important to try and fight the bank for the lowest possible interest rate. The reason why we want to do that, the lower the interest rate, the lower our monthly payment will be. Okay, but it's important to also just understand, I'm not going to go in too much detail now, but the interest portion of your payment monthly you can deduct from tax, okay, from your rental income, and then that means that your tax burden gets less. But not too much detail today, this is just the basics. Okay, principal. In your monthly payment, the monthly payment is divided into two parts, okay? There's a principal part and an interest part. In the first few years that you're going to pay your monthly payment, the big portion of that monthly payment will be interest, and the other portion will be principal. Principal is the amount of money that goes down on your bond. So let's say, for instance, you've got a 100,000 Rand bond, you're paying 10,000 Rand a month, 9,000 is interest, 1,000 is principal. Okay, what that means is at the end of that month, you'll be only owing 99,000 Rand. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So principal is the amount of money that comes off on your bond every month after a payment. And this The longer you pay, the bigger the principal amount per month gets and the smaller the interest amount gets. Okay. Equity links into principal. Okay, equity refers to the amount of money that you've paid off on your bond. Okay, so again, not too much detail, but equity comes into play. That's actually how much money you can put in your pocket. So just a small example quickly. Okay, so let's say you've got a bond of 100,000. You've paid for 3 years already. Okay, let's use the 10,000 example again. So you've paid 10,000 year 1, 10,000 year 2, and 10,000 year 3. Okay, now remember within those payments there's a principal part and interest part. Okay, so let's just for example say in this example that we have paid off the bond by 10,000 rand. So we're outstanding 90,000. So the equity refers to the 10,000 rand locked up in that property. So if you go and you put the property in the market and you sell it and you pay off your bond, you are left with 10,000 rand. Let's say you sell it for 100,000 rand, you pay your bond of 90,000 rand and you are left with 10,000. That 10,000 is the equity part. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, bond term is just the amount of years that you are taking that bond for. Is it going to be 30 years where it's going to be residential, or are you deciding to go 20 years? It's all up to you. Commercial 5 to 15 years, again, it's all up to you. It's all up to what you can qualify for, but that is what bond term means. Transaction costs. Transaction costs is all the costs that you pay because of buying that property or because of the transaction of the property. So a few things that you need to take into consideration here is transfer costs. Transfer costs, especially in South Africa, is a tax that you need to pay to transfer the property into your name and get the deed to the property. Next, you get bond registration costs, and then you get attorney costs. There are cool calculators out there, and I'll link you to those calculators in the description below. Lastly, we've got renovation costs. Renovation costs is whatever cost that you have to do to get a renter in there. It might be to retile the property, maybe the geyser is broken, or maybe the kitchen is in a bad condition and you need to renovate it. All that comes up to one cost, transaction cost, for you to get the property in your name and then also to get it into a condition that you are very happy to give to the tenants. Okay. Lease agreement, super important. But basically what it is, it's a contract between the landlord and the tenant. The landlord will be you and the tenant will be the person renting from you. Make sure that it protects your interest, because it is super important to make sure everything that you and the tenant have agreed on is in that lease agreement. This lease agreement, when he stops paying, will govern what happens because of him not paying. Okay, so that is very, very important. Okay, ongoing costs. Ongoing costs is something that a lot of people forget to take into consideration when they're doing their calculations for rental property. Ongoing cost is all your monthly costs that you have to pay to keep that property. Okay, meaning, first of all, your monthly payment on your bond. You might be in an HOA and then you need to pay levies, rates and taxes, which is taxes for your property, and whatever else. There might be sanitation, there might be rubbish removal, whatever it is. Make sure that you take everything into consideration. All right. Another one that you'll throw in there is management fee if you decide to get your property managed by estate agents. Rental yield is calculated as a percentage. Okay, rental yield is very important when we make our decisions in terms of rental property. The lower the rental yield, the less amount of money you are making on your property. Rental yield can also be seen as return on investment. But there's two parts. There's a gross rental yield and then there's a net rental yield. Gross rental yield refers to literally what is the yearly rent that you can expect, and then what is the property value or the property price. Okay, that is your gross rental yield. Net rental yield refers to total income, which means total rental that you have received minus total expenses. This does not include transaction expenses. This only includes ongoing expenses. Okay, so at the end of the year, what profit did your rental property make? Okay, and then you divide that by the property value. It's very important to not skew rental yield with cash on cash return, and I'm going to cover cash on cash return now, but rental yield still forms a very, very important part of your calculation. Normally, where I live in South Africa, if you get at least a rental yield of 10%, that's a property that you might be willing to go at. Because what does that mean? That means if the property costs me 100,000, whatever the currency is, and I receive 10,000, whatever the currency is, put 10,000 divided by 100,000, that gives me a rental yield of 10%. Okay, so that overall is a decent one. The higher that it is, the better. But theoretically, you don't want to be going lower than 10%, in my opinion. Cash on cash return. Cash on cash return basically means what is the return that you are making on your cash. Now remember, you've got a bond. You have used other people's money to buy this property. You might have either put in a deposit or your transaction. This is where your transaction costs come in. Okay, so all the money that flows out of your pocket in day one to get that property into your name, that is the cash that you have expended to get that property. Now cash on cash return refers to, okay, cool, what is the rental income for the year, or the rental profit for the year? Rental profit is total rental received minus total expenses, ongoing expenses. Divide that by the cash that you have spent to buy this property. Okay, so obviously maybe in year 1 and year 2 and year 3 there's no cash on cash return, but remember what you are getting is the equity portion. Rental increase is super important. This is where people always burn their fingers. They overestimate how much rental increase they can charge for the property in the current market. Okay, it's super important to understand how much rental is going up by every year, if it is going up every year. Okay, where I live in South Africa, rental has not gone up here for quite a while. Actually, it hasn't increased a lot. It increased a very small amount, and it's only increased on the lower property scales. So for instance, 2-bedroom places or very small 3-bedroom places, where the market, there's a lot of people looking for those properties. Okay, but as soon as you go to more expensive areas, then that is obviously a bit more tricky. Now this is where commercial property comes in. Commercial property basically tracks the inflation rate. Okay, so it's very important. Commercial property could be a better option, okay, because of the consistent rental increases, but the demand could be less. Okay, so it's very important to understand rental increases, and also to make sure that you are taking a very conservative approach when putting rental increase into your calculations. Vacancy rate. Vacancy rate, I've specifically put vacancy rate here, not occupancy rate, because I want to hammer down on vacancy rate. Vacancy rate is super important. Vacancy rate means that how many months of a year am I going to have no tenants in my property. Everyone buys a rental property and always thinks that no matter what, I will have a renter or the tenant in my property. Guys, unfortunately that is not the case, and vacancy rate can refer to how many months will I not be receiving rent at all. That means you've got a tenant in there, but that tenant is defaulting on his payments every month and not paying you. What can you expect? And this is also, if you bring vacancy rate into the calculations of buying a rental property, you can actually be in a stronger position because you can be more conservative. So the higher your vacancy rate, the less rental per month you are expecting. So let's quickly. Okay, so let's say for instance you are expecting 1 month out of the 12 months in the year you are going to be vacant, which means no tenant or no rent that you'll be receiving. Okay, that means you will have a vacancy rate of 8.3%, calculated by 1 divided by 12 times 100. 8.3%. You know, the higher your vacancy rate goes, the less rental you will receive for the year, which has a total impact on your calculation. Vacancy rate, super important. Do not forget it. Everyone does, and then when they don't receive rent for 2 or 3 or 4 months, they are financially in trouble, because who pays that bill? Who pays that monthly fee? The bank wants their fee. Who pays that? If the renter doesn't pay it, you will have to. So make sure that in your calculations you have at least an emergency fund for ongoing costs. Guys, thank you so much for sticking with me through that video. I hope you find that interesting. It's super important to understand all these things. It is a very long-term investment that you are making. Rental properties is one of those things. It's a slow one, but when you are patient enough with it, after a few years time it really starts making sense. I'll be making a series on rental properties and what you can expect in terms of that. The next 4 or 5 videos that I make will be around rental properties. Okay, so if this is the first video that you are watching, keep looking out for the next videos in terms of rental properties. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, or you can ask me a question in the comment section. No problem. See you guys in the next one. Bye.